Before we begin tonight's meeting, I would like to welcome everybody to another virtual and in-person meeting. Board members and some town staff should be visible on video. I'd like to remind board members two things. Please mute your microphone while you are not speaking, and please do not use WebEx's chat function. This virtual meeting will have a public comment period along with the public hearing items. The time limit for the standard public comment period will be 3 minutes. If necessary, town staff is available and prepared to confirm and attempt to resolve any technical issues. If you are having technical problems and are unable to meaningfully participate in this meeting, please email Robert Bishop. His contact information is at the top of tonight's agenda. We appreciate your participation in this odd format. As with our in-person meetings, we hope we create a friendly and respectful atmosphere for public dialogue. I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, November 16, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under indivisible, with justice for all. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Here.
Trustee Clark? Noted absent. Trustee LeKind? Trustee LeKind?
Continue, Ms. Hogan.
Trustee Romanello?
Present.
Trustee Stevens?
Here.
Trustee Unruh?
And one last time, Trustee LeKind, Trustee Clark, are you with us? Okay, moving on. Before us, we have a consent agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
I'd like to remove the discussion item 21 budget that we already had a workshop to cover that.
Discussion item 7A.
Correct.
It appears we have covered everything that needed to be covered in that. Is the board in agreement with that modification?
I am.
I am.
Yes.
Yes.
There's LeKind.
Trustee LeKind, you are with us now, correct?
I am with us.
Okay. Okay, so do we have any other modifications or a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
I move to approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan.
Trustee Unruh?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee LeKind?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Okay, that takes us to item 5A, ordinance number 27-2020, an ordinance adopting and restating budget for the purpose set forth below for the town of Monument. Ms. Ohms.
Thank you, Mayor. In your agenda packets tonight, you have a 2020 restated budget. It's necessary to restate the budget this year for several reasons. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic that began in March of 2020, the town has made multiple cutbacks and changes to town expenses during the year. The town of Monument also received CARES Act funds from El Paso County of just over $550,000. These revenues and corresponding expenses were not included in the original approved budget, but have now been added into the budget restatement. In addition, the Town of Monument recently issued COPs for multiple water projects that will be happening over the next 3 years. These COP proceeds and the additional expenses anticipated in the water fund to begin some of these projects in the latter months of 2020 have been added into the 2020 budget restatement. As you'll see in the memo that I had submitted earlier this week, we're only requesting increased expenses in the general fund of just under $100,000, as some of the cutbacks that we had net out with some of the increases that we had from those COVID-19 expenses. So we've submitted Ordinance 27-2020 and Ordinance 28 to request the Board of Trustees approve the 2020 restated budget. Ordinance 27-2020 gives the current and expected fund balances of each fund, as well as the projected revenues and expenses. And Ordinance 28 appropriates the expenses approved to the funds where they will be paid from. I respectfully request the Board of Trustees approve Ordinances 27 and 28, adopting the 2020 restated budget and appropriating updated sums of money to the various funds in the amounts set forth in those ordinances.
Okay. This is a public hearing item, so I am going to open it up to public comment. Mr. Anderson, please let us know if there's any public comment, and we'll also go ahead with board questions at the same time. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
I do and don't, not necessarily in these ordinances, but on the budget itself for 2021. Is there any reason why we could not vote and approve the draft budget the way it is stated and not wait to the last minute in December to do it?
So right now we're on restating the 2020 budget.
I clarified that. That's why I said I understand that, but I'm asking a question about the 2021 budget. Are we able to just approve that tonight if we wanted to?
I believe that requires a resolution.
It will require 2 more ordinances, just like these 2. Correct. One for each of basically these same 2 ordinances that you're approving for the restatement, you'll have to approve in 2 weeks for the new budget. And the reason why we can't, even though we found out the stuff about the police sales tax and knew those things weren't going to play a role, the reason why we can't do that tonight is because we are required to post publicly prior to the adoption of the budget.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, will we be doing that on the 1st December meeting or the 2nd December meeting?
It will be on the 1st December meeting.
That's
So it will
good.
be
Thank you.
December 7th, as well as the mill levy that will need to be approved.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions about ordinance number 27-2020? She did both of them, but we have to do them separate. Mr. Anderson, do we have any public comments on this item? Okay, at this point, I will close the public hearing portion of this item, and we will look for a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 27-2020, an ordinance adopting a reinstated budget for the purposes set forth below. The town of Monument, Colorado, beginning the first day of January 2020 and ending the last day of December 2020.
Can't hear the mayor.
I'm sorry, I had my mic muted. We have one public comment in regards to ordinance number 27-2020. Mr. Anderson, is that person live? Okay, please make a comment. Do you know who it is? Okay, Ms. Howe, whenever you're ready.
Hello.
Go ahead.
My question for the restatement of the budget with the additional funds, why hasn't that been, I guess, made public before this ordinance was proposed?
Okay, thank you. No. Ms. Holmes, would you please address that?
The restatement that was being proposed went out with the board packet earlier this week, and it was also posted for 3 days in the Gazette as required for public hearing.
All right, I don't get the Gazette, so thank you.
Mr. Anderson, do we have any other public comments on this item? Okay. We do already have a motion and a second on the floor. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll?
Trustee Unruh. Trustee Unruh.
We may have lost her.
Trustee LeKind.
Yes.
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
It appears Trustee Clark has joined us. Trustee Clark.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
Trustee Unruh. It doesn't appear she's on presently.
Okay. That motion passes 5-1 with one absent. Is that what that would be, Ms. Hogan? Okay. That takes us to ordinance number 28, 2020. An ordinance appropriating sums of money to the various funds in the amounts set forth below, beginning the first day of January 2020, last day of December 2020. Ms. Ohms, do you want to just real quick?
So the ordinance 28 basically takes all of the information from ordinance 27 and is now giving us the right to appropriate those expenses into those different funds in order to have the money there for the restatement.
Thank you. Are there any, this is a public hearing item, so I'll open it up to public comments. And Mr. Anderson, do we have any public comments at this time? Ms. Howe, did you have an additional comment? Okay, go ahead and.
Well, they have to unmute my speaker before I can speak, so.
Ms.
The
Howe, you are
question is-
unmuted. Go ahead.
The question is, are you going to funnel the additional funds through the water fund and have it mismanaged like you have in the past, or will you place good controls on it that show visibility as to where that money is going?
Ms. Holmes, was there any changes in this ordinance to the water fund?
The only changes that were in the water fund are related to the COP bonds that were issued and the corresponding expenses for the upcoming water projects. Ms. Howe, are you referring to the CARES Act money?
The CARES Act money and the COP bonds that are being funneled through the 2A water fund and the water fund.
So I would say 99% of the CARES Act funding is running through the general fund, and most of it, over 50% of it, was given back out to businesses through business grants through the town. Other portions were used to help cover cleaning costs for the town throughout COVID. And covering some of the police salaries who are responding to additional calls during that time as well. The only parts of that funding that are going to other funds is a small portion covering employee salaries that were doing jobs specifically related to the COVID pandemic. I believe for the water fund, that's less than $1,000. And then for the COP funding, I have spoken to our new auditors on how this needs to be treated, and they will be, it will be part of the audit going forward on how these funds are being spent. And we will also be needing to in order to get the money to pay for these projects from the trustee, we will be needing to submit documentation of what it is being spent on.
Okay, but in the past, the business loans, there wasn't a good record and there wasn't accountability because I have the past business loan grants, whatever you'd like to call them. And the office could not provide a good record of them. I provided them records, so is that being made sure that it's transparent and traceable?
The business grants related to the CARES Act funding?
To any of the Town of Monument money or the CARES Act?
So the CARES Act is federal funding. We will be audited by the federal government in order to prove that we spent that money in a reasonable manner that qualified under budget expense items that are allowable with the CARES Act funding. And I'm unsure of what other portion you're referring to.
The business
Okay.
grant that the Town of Monument gives? And when will the audit be done?
So
I
say-
think federal
speaking of the
government.
county money that came in, or
The-
CARES
Thank you.
Act. Yes,
thank
it
you
was
for-
funneled through El Paso.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Howe. Are there any other comments for the
You
restating?
didn't answer the question. So if you would like to answer the question before you mute me, that would be appreciated. Thank you. So when is the audit going to take place by the federal government for the CARES Act? When is that scheduled?
The Town of Monument will be audited by the town's auditors sometime between April and June of 2020. I do not know, 2021 for the year 2020. I do not know when the federal government will be conducting their audits. They will be, I'm sure, conducting audits of every municipality in the area who has received CARES Act funding. So we have all of our documentation that we are putting together to send to the county, and we will comply with whatever requirements they require.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody else for public comment? At this point, I will close the public hearing portion of this item and bring it back to the board for further discussion or a motion.
I
I
have a
moved it.
comment.
Okay?
I would just like to commend Mrs. Ooms for the great way she has revamped our systems in the accounting department and the ways that she has made better what has happened in the past. She's done a phenomenal job. I think that the Town of Monument books could pass any audit. I think that she's to be commended, and I would like to give that commendation to her now.
Thank you. And I agree with that. Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Any further comments or a motion?
I move to approve ordinance number 28, 2020, an ordinance approving sums of money to the various funds in the amounts set forth below for the Town of Monument, Colorado, beginning on the first day of January 2020 and ending on the last day of December 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee LeKind?
Yes.
It doesn't appear Trustee Unruh is on the WebEx. Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes. That motion passes 5-1 with one absent.
Mayor, this is Mike. It appears Ms. Unruh's having some internet problems. Drew's working with her, but she believes it might be on her end and not our end.
Okay. So just a note to the board, if we have an ordinance or a resolution that passes or fails within a margin of 1%, we will have to try to fix Ms. Unruh's problem at that point, if that were to happen. Moving on to ordinance number 29, 2020. An ordinance changing the Town of Monuments regular election from the first Tuesday in April of each even numbered year to the first Tuesday succeeding the first Monday in the November of each even number year. Ms. Hogan.
This is basically just a follow-up to the question that we posed to the voters on this last ballot, which was, do they want to change our regular election schedule from April of even numbered years to November of even numbered years? That, although, results aren't official, it appears that that is going to pass by about a vote of 64% in favor. So this is a follow-up because Colorado Revised Statutes 3110-109 1B requires that when a majority of the voters elect to change their regular election date, the governing body of the municipality shall by ordinance establish a new election date. So this is just a formality required because of the vote of the citizens.
Okay. This is also a public hearing item. So, Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody wanting to make public comment on this item? Okay. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
You
Since
do
this
have
was,
questions.
go ahead.
So that you can do this before it's been canvassed and completed?
Yes, we can do the ordinance, and if the canvas showed something different, it would nullify the ordinance, correct?
If I may jump in on this, yes, that's correct. The ordinance will not go into effect until after the canvas has been completed. This
Thank
has a
you.
30-day waiting period.
Any other board comments or questions? Okay, if there's none, I'll look for a motion.
I moved to ordinance number 29, 2020, an ordinance changing the Town of Monument regular election from the first Tuesday in April of each even numbered year to the first Tuesday succeeding the first Monday in November of each even numbered year.
Second?
We have a motion, a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-0 with one absent. Resolution number 43, 2020, a resolution awarding a contract to Lane Christensen to drill and case well number 10. Mr. Tharnish.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. The resolution you have in front of you tonight is the first of the 15 major projects that will be funded through the bond issuance. And it involves the contracted drilling company to drill a new well, well number 10, an Arapahoe-based well, which means it'll be somewhere between roughly 1,100 feet and about 1,800 feet, depending on where the best area of that is for drawing water out. We had our current water consultant handle the bidding process for this because it's a very specialized field with only a handful of companies that can drill wells to that depth. They did bid it out. They had 3 bidders, and the low bidder in this project was Lane Christensen, I should say the low responsive bidder. And tonight in front of you have the contract for $624,975 to drill and encase well number 10. I will say that there is another contract coming probably after the first of the year to actually tie that well into water treatment plant 4 and 5, since the well will be drilled right outside that treatment plant. So I'd take any questions you have at this time.
Mr. Tharnish, this well gets well 9 offline, correct? While we deal with radium issues?
Well, for the short term, once it's drilled and operational, which we expect it to be providing water to our system, we're hoping to get that operational in the March to April timeframe because the state needs to approve the treatment process for that well, and that typically takes a month or two. Once that is online, then we're hoping that the production out of this well either equal or be greater than well number 9, because well number 9 is not expected to come back online until the fall of that year. So yes, in a roundabout way, it is a replacement for in the short term until well 9 is back online.
Okay. Other questions from the board? Who's our consultant that worked on this?
This is Bruce Lytle with Lytle Associates. Lytle, can't even talk straight. Lytle Associates. They've been our water consultants for, actually it's Lytle Water Solutions is their official name, but they have been our hydrological consultants for probably the last 8 to 10 years. And they're in a very specialized field. They have done extremely important and good projects for us over the years when it comes to drilling. They're the ones the first ones you call when you say you want to drill a well, and they come out and evaluate the site and tell you exactly where you should put this well.
My reason for asking that is you mentioned Lane Christensen was the lowest bid.
Yes.
Does Lytle agree that they're good to do the work? Sometimes the lowest bid isn't the best.
Yes, in the package, there should be a letter where they're recommending work with Lane Christensen. We worked with Lane Christensen in the past, back when they were known as Lane Western. They've changed names a little bit. We have used them on some of our older wells. It's just been quite a few years since we had. Well, actually, it's been quite a few years since we drilled a new well. And I was surprised we had 3 bids. Normally, you get 1, maybe 2 if you're lucky, because drillers are high in demand. And in Colorado, there's more drills in this state than most Western states. And they keep one of those people that bid it. KP Ventures was actually out of Arizona, and the other 2 were Colorado drilling companies.
Okay. Other questions from the board or a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 43, 2020, a resolution awarding a contract to Lane Christensen to drill and case the new water well number 10.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Romanello?
Yes.
Trustee Unruh is still having problems, difficulties. Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee LeKind?
Yes.
That motion passes 5-1 with 1 absent. Item 7A has been removed from the agenda. This brings us to item 8, public comments. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Anderson, do we have any public comments? Okay, so we have 1 public comment. And okay. Ms. Howe? Ms. Howe?
It helps when you guys unmute. Yes, I'd like to know why the Chamber of Commerce quote donation has been increased by $5,000 to $25,000 when we have to go bond to do community projects that need to be done. I would like to know what the return on investment is of Miss Madeline's salary being cut into two different places, the general fund and the community fund, and I'd like to know what her overall salary is. And again, what's the return on investment for that position? And I'd also like to know what the status is of the embezzlement from the former town treasurer and what's being done to recoup funds that have been embezzled.
Thank you for your comments.
Oh, I'd like answers too. Thank you.
Mr. Drew, is she off? Mr. Anderson, do we have any other public comments? Okay. Board authorization items. Proclamation recognizing January 24th through the 30th, 2021 as School Choice Week in Monument. This is one that was brought to me last year. It came up again this year and would like the board to do another proclamation for School Choice Week. Is there any anyone who is not in favor?
I would like to say I think it's tremendous that we are doing this. I fully approve.
Thank you. Okay, since there seems to be nobody not in agreement, is there any other board authorization items from anyone? Okay. Town manager report. Is there any questions for Mr. Foreman on the town manager report?
I would like to say that Mr. Foreman's reports are exceptional, and I appreciate the information that's within it.
I appreciate that, Ms. Clark. I have to give all credit to our staff, especially Ms. Madeline Van Hook. She does a great job of putting everything together and getting everybody's information together and provide that to the board. So it's definitely a team effort.
Well, I can see that, and please let Madeline know that I appreciate her efforts as well as the rest of your team.
I definitely will.
Okay, if there's no questions for the town manager report, we will move on to Board of Trustee comments. Okay.
I would like to thank Nate Eckloff, Mike Foreman, Tom Tharnish, and all the town staff that worked on the bond issue for the water. I just want everybody to know publicly that I believe the number was 19.8 million that it actually cost us for $22 million worth of bonds. I know it was in the 19 something range, but because of the way they negotiated and did it, saved us about $3 million. So I want to thank you all.
Excellent. Other board comments. I have one comment question for Mr. Foreman. Am I correct in recalling that the chamber's funding went up by 5,000, but we stopped paying about 7,000 in their utilities? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I believe it was last budget year in 2020 that we gave them an extra $5,000, but that now they pay their own utilities and other items like that we were paying previously.
Thank you. Is there any other Board of Trustee comments? Okay. Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting's adjourned.